Yeah. And like, okay, going back to like the ethical side of it, and people always ask like, okay, are like is this technology helping people kill deer? I think it is. I think it's definitely helping people kill deer. But at the same time, if you look at the statistics, and I've seen this before with elk hunting, and there's podcasts out there, there's videos out there, there's mapping applications, there's all these different things. The success rate isn't getting any better.
Right.
But you still have to put in the work to do it. It's helping the people that still are going to put in the work in maybe a shorter amount of time, but being able to capitalize on those opportunities and do that. But like, no matter what, you can find the best spots in the world. I know some people that are pretty dang good at scouting that aren't very good deer killers.
Yeah.
And because you have to go in and do the work, are you going to be able to get up every single day and go in and hunt the spot for a week straight and be able to do that? Or, just there's a million examples of this, but like you still have to put in the work and do it and think about it. It's just, this is helping you be a little bit more efficient with that time and being able to do that. And I think that's a killer way, because the world itself is getting busier. The world isn't the same as it was 40 years ago.
No, not at all.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this can be argued because I didn't live during that time, but like I felt like there was more time out there. Right now, everybody's busy. You talk to anybody, no one's going to say, I'm just relaxing, not very many people are doing that.
Yeah,
so
at
like,
least not in our circles.
No. So like having the efficiency to be able to do things and be able to find spots and go in and check things out, like that's so important. And for me, very rarely am I like perfectly finding a spot on a map that I'm hunting on that location. Now, the other day I did get lucky where I marked a spot. I'm like, I think a buck's bedding on this little tiny micro point that was coming out there. Looks like a good transition bench that they'd be running on. I found a shed like 30 yards from a point that I marked at home. Yeah,
nice.
Biggest one I found this year.
No,
and
nice.
I was like, okay, now that's obviously really cool and that's nice, but a lot of times what it does is get me in the right area, and then you start seeing things like, oh, okay, this looks good. This looks like a good bedding point, but there's cover over there. Okay, maybe he's going to be spend, and you start walking over there and you start finding the sign. And it's like it gets you in those right places to be able to analyze it. And I know we've said that a bunch of times on this podcast, but like I want to emphasize that, and that's my standing behind mapping and like technology advancements, and things are going to get, as much as we either like it or dislike it, things are getting more advanced. I mean, vehicles are getting more advanced. Our phones everything is growing. So like that's just the turn of the times. Like things are getting different. That's just the way we operate in this world.
Yeah, I mean, people can feel free not to use them too. They don't need to use them.
No.
You can go in and do it without it all you want to. I would say there's also a safety element here, with things like mapping and tracking and planning, and with with Blue Force Tracker, as that comes out, being able to share your location with your wife or your father or friends, or auto sharing pins between people. And it to me, and you kind of said it earlier, and I think it's worth a whole nother podcast. But what I would like to bring back from those times is like the deer camp mentality, and get more people getting this to be more about, well, it's also about hunting, but also about the camaraderie that comes along with hunting, and the we're tribal animals, and we like tribes, and we like our groups of people. And I think the deer camp tribe is something that I think we need it more now than ever. It's such a pure place to be, and such a great place to be. And I saw it when we were at your grandfather's camp, and I see it, when we're out at Johnny's place. And I just, bought my father's cabin in North Dakota that he was, building while he was dying when I was a young child, that I purchased last year. And I'm going to turn that back into the deer camp place. And the deer camp place has kids, and kids have phones, and I will send my kid out with Blue Force Tracker so I know where he's at when he's hunting in the woods. And I don't care if you like that or not. Like, it's a safety thing. And, people say, well, if they didn't use that back in the day. It's like, well, they probably would have if they could have.
Yeah. They also didn't have vehicles bore that. They rode horses fucking everywhere. Like,
and they also couldn't bitch on Facebook. So why aren't you sending this message by courier pigeon? You're going to complain to me about my technology, my company, wrap it around the pigeon or wrap it around the ankle of a pigeon and send it to me that way.
Yeah. No, exactly. And the deer camp thing, though, man, I could go on for freaking days about that. But like, I learned that especially when Lee and Drew came up here and hunted. The Seek One guys came up and hunted in Pennsylvania, and they hadn't really experienced much of deer camp type vibes. This is a different type of hunting where they're at. And like both Lee and Drew were like, it was so cool to see that and see the memories on the wall and all the old photos and hanging out. Like we were at Johnny's cabin and then I wanted to take them back to my deer camp that was more of a small, no running water type deer camp and experience that. And it was so cool to hear the positive impact that at least they said they had they got from it.
They told me to later, so they're
okay.
telling the truth.
All right, they're telling the truth. All right, sweet. But like I think that's so important and to be able to do that. And yeah, and if you can if adding technology to some stuff to get kids involved, because that's the direction. I mean, they all have iPads in schools and they're going through all these things. Like any way to be able to do that, I think is super important. And one of the biggest things that I told you this when we were driving in the car back from lunch. I was like, one of my things that I find is really important is I want to bring that deer camp tradition to the next generation and be able to do that, because like I feel like my father's age and that generation was big on it, and then even down to my age it's lost a little bit. There's not as many people that are doing it. And I had a guy come up to me at the Maven booth at Great American Outdoor Show and was like, hey, I just bought some land, building a cabin, and getting my dad involved. We never had a deer camp thing.
Awesome.
And I'm like, that's freaking awesome. Like, that's what I want right there. Like, I want that. And whether that's, you don't even have to have your own deer camp. Even like that was one of the reasons why I got started with the Airbnb in an area. Was like, okay, I could have that and people can come have a deer camp experience without the financial backing of having to buy a camp or do anything. They can spend, less than $1,000 and have a place to go to and bring everybody there and then leave and not have to cut the grass all year and do maintenance and do that kind of stuff.
I had two buddies in Maryland, and when we were hunting public out west there and western Maryland, and we would do it with tents. We'd set up 3 tents. We'd always go to the same spot, and we did lots of stuff. I mean, some of it I talked to Johnny about, and he wants to do some of it again, but one of the things we would do is we would pack out a cooler full of food and a cooler full of beer, and we'd padlock them with combos. And we would get out there and we'd go for a week to 10 days. And the coolers couldn't be opened until we got a code from my wife. My buddy's wife would set the code, and until somebody killed a doe or a deer. So we weren't eating. We went 3 days one time without eating. We're just having salt and water, like to keep our electrolytes up, and sugar-free Gatorades. And one year we went 3 days without killing a doe. Like, you're just ready to kill like the first thing. It was so much fun. And I look back on it so favorably. We were young and dumb and full of energy, and we just wanted to get after it. And I'll tell you what, man. I can see the exact look on my friends' faces on that day where it was the 3 days where we hadn't killed anything, because we knew the area really well. And generally we were getting something killed in the first 3 sits. Yeah. So we'd hunt like morning, afternoon, morning. Out of the 4 years we did it, we were eating in the first 18 hours usually. But this one time by this third day, we were just drinking salt water and Gatorades. And just when I remember there by the fire, and hadn't told them that I killed anything, and I'm dragging this thing, and I barely had any energy whatsoever. When I came out with it, they were like, whoa, like everyone's cheering, and we're just like arms around each other. You wanted to cry when we were pulling the skin off of this thing to get the tenderloins on the fire. Then we text that picture and opened it up, and 2 beers, and we're shithoused. Yeah. We didn't have anything in our systems. And we're just like, oh, it's the best night ever. And I told Johnny that story, and I think he met one of my buddies, Dan, that we did that with. And he's like, Bill, we got to do that. That sounds amazing.
Johnny would take an axe and break that cooler full of beer open and get right into it.
I smell beer, Bill. Deer, Johnny? No, beer. Let me get my axe. Well, that kind of goes to the deer camp thing. And one of the things, again, and it's a different podcast for another time, but we've kind of lost our culture, and other cultures haven't, but our culture has. We've kind of lost initiation rites.